Hello, friends, and welcome back. I am excited to be here. I just got back from Florida. I was there for about 10 days. I apologize in advance for my voice. I'm a little scratchy. I lost my voice. I had really bad allergies over there. There's just like a lot going on in Florida. So I still don't sound normal, but the show must go on. Um, so just so you know why I sound a little bit off. But yeah, I just got back from Florida. I went for the retreat, which was so much fun. Before that, Kelly, my friend Kelly, and you guys probably know Kelly from Kelly's Clean Kitchen. She was chefing the retreat, and we decided to go up early to do Disney World for 2 days. I had never been to Disney World. I'm a huge Disney person. Disneyland is like, I know better than the back of my hand. I have spent my whole life like going there, and when I was in college and I lived in LA, I had an annual pass and I would go multiple times a week. I'm just a big Disney nerd. Anyway, never been to Disney World, so busy with Disneyland. So it was fun to go there for the first time, especially with Kelly, who knows the ins and outs of the parks, and we just had the best time ever. I had so much fun, and I feel like that was the theme of the entire trip. Every trip, every part of our lives has a different energy, and I feel like the last 10 days I just have had so much fun. I had so much fun just the entire time I was in Florida. I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of Florida. I'm not the biggest fan of Orlando. Let me say that. Uh, I know it's very different than a lot of other cities in Florida. But yeah, for a number of reasons. And honestly, just like it's not my kind of weather. It's just not my kind of weather. But I had so much fun in Florida between Disney World and just hanging out with Kelly and then the retreat. The retreat was pure magic, and the intention of it was inner child activation as well as activating our next level of spiritual gifts. So we did a lot around intuition and energy work, and just so much inner child play. I have so much to say about the retreat, but I just loved how many times the ladies there were saying things like, "Oh, I just haven't laughed this much in forever," or like, "Oh, I needed this. Like, I'm having so much fun. I can't remember the last time I had this much fun." I love hearing that, and it really was just so much fun. I think we all laughed so hard we were crying so many times, and it was one for the books. It was one for the books. I love throwing retreats. Every retreat is very different. So much of it is what's co-created through the group, through the people that are meant to be there. And I find it is really all so beautifully, perfectly, divinely orchestrated. And as we get into the weekend, you start to realize why everyone's there. And by that, I mean, why they needed this at this point in their life, but also who was supposed to meet who and how you make these connections where maybe you wouldn't have otherwise met these people. And it's just a really, really beautiful thing. So the food was incredible, next level. Kelly did an amazing job. If you need a chef for a retreat, I highly recommend Kelly at Kelly's Clean Kitchen. She is so amazing. It was just so much fun for me to create and put together. We played all kinds of games. I taught, what did I teach? I taught divination class. Obviously, I taught transfiguration. I taught defense against the dark arts. I taught potions class. I taught astronomy, and we just went everywhere. It was a lot of fun. You just had to be there, And I was telling the women there, I was like, it's so hard for me with retreats because you really just can't articulate the magic that happens here. And it really there's something different that happens in person, and being able to have these really deep connections, deep conversations. Obviously, all of the energy work, we did a lot of energy work, and it's just so powerful to see how people become a completely different person through a few days. And I think it's important to share experiences like that because a lot of people in their lives feel stuck. They feel stuck. And let me tell you, I am in the work of transformation, right? Seeing, witnessing, supporting people in transforming their own lives. And no matter how many retreats I've hosted, no matter how many sessions I have facilitated, it never ceases to amaze me what can happen in 30 minutes, in an hour, in a weekend, where people leave as a completely different version of themselves on a completely different timeline, feeling totally different about their lives, feeling so clear, having new gifts turned on. It's just a really, really magical thing. And that really was the point of this retreat. And really, as I, tune into where I want to go with my work next, it really is about reconnecting people with magic and helping them to realize that there is magic everywhere all the time happening. There's communication with the universe happening all at once, and you can either see it or not see it. It's happening either way. And life can feel constantly, consistently magical and miraculous if you allow it and if you know how to really receive that. And so that is really what I'm focusing on. And I know we all experienced that this weekend. And I hope that a lot of you experience that in the other content I release as well. So anyway, that was amazing. I am home just for a few days. I am still in a sea of boxes. I am still in a sea of boxes, and I am leaving again in a few days. We'll be gone for a bit, and then I'll be home for like 2 weeks. So I'm excited for that 2 weeks to like really ground myself in. I'm really, really being intentional with the time I have at home. It feels like crunch time in a lot of ways when I have a lot to do, and I really have to like stay on top of taking care of myself, especially after so much traveling and like, my immune system. I will tell you, I hop right into my routines. I have been drowning myself in Ned CBD, in Organifi, in Element electrolytes. I did a cold plunge. We got a cold plunge, which was like the first thing I wanted to get when I got to this house, from Edge Theory Labs. I had the co-founder Joshua Dean Church on the podcast a while back. If you're interested in getting a cold plunge, I have a discount code. It's Christina in the channel. It gives you, I think, $150 off, but like highly recommend. Anyway, I cold plunged this morning. It was amazing. Getting back into my journaling routine, listening to some content in the membership. I did a meditation this morning. Did a coffee enema because that is great for resetting. Haven't done one in a while because I've been traveling. And yeah, just like getting back into my grounded rituals and getting really clear on myself, and then balancing, sorting through the sea of all this. I'm the kind of person where when there's like a mess around me, I can't. I need it to be put away. And so I'm feeling kind of unsettled until I can fully unpack. So, all that's happening. And I've been sharing on Instagram, like it is fun to create this space and be really intentional with it, like I said in the last episode. And I got so much incredible feedback from the episode. I really appreciate that. I'm glad that resonated with you guys. There's a lot of good stuff in that, and I'm still in that process. I haven't like fully moved in yet. So anyway, there's a lot happening. But popping back in before my next little travel stint, and onward and upward. So I have a few, like I said, I don't really have a few things. I have one thing. If you are in the membership and Ascension School, we, depending on when you are listening to this, either have already sent out an email or are going to send an email letting you know that we will be having 3 calls this month, starting on the 11th each week at 4 p.m. PST. So it's going to be a mixed bag of tricks. You'll have to come to find out what's happening. You can go to christinathechannel.com/membership to get a free 7-day trial of the membership to check it out, see what's up, all my meditations, channel messages, all of our fun transmission calls, lots of trainings, all the good stuff. So check that out there. That's pretty much my main announcement. So I wanted to do an episode, speaking of magic, recapping Paris a little bit. I was in Paris for a bit, about 2 weeks, and I've had a bunch of people ask me if I was going to do an episode recapping it specifically, so I thought, why not? And yeah, I feel like it was very intentional. Well, of course, has not been a coincidence that I have been on the go so much in the last few months, and so much has been shifting and changing. And whenever you are wanting to change one thing in your life, I find that it's easiest to make multiple changes at once. So, kind of what I was talking about with moving and transitioning homes. That is such a great time to change habits, to make identity shifts that you've been ready to make, to step into your most authentic self, to also tack on, oh, I do this every week now, or whatever it is. I find that because you're already in the energy of change and transformation, it is easier to tack that thing on, which is one of the reasons why when I want to form a new habit, actually for me, traveling is a good time for me to do that, because I'm already in a different routine. And so it doesn't feel like this going against the groove. Like, we build these energetic grooves in our lives, and when we want to change a habit or even a thought, it can feel kind of difficult to do that because we're so in that groove. But when we're already out of the groove, in a different groove, it's easier to add in other things. It's easier to shift a thought, to shift a belief, to shift a behavior, to shift a habit, whatever it is for me when I am traveling. And I feel like the last month has been so much spaciousness of doing things in like such a different order, in such a different way, really tuning into my body in a very different way, eating differently because I'm traveling, I'm in different areas, different cultures, things like that. So it's been this really interesting like flow space for me. I've obviously gotten so many messages that I'm like still integrating. Like the best way I can describe it is, it is full mermaid energy. Like this house for me represents like mermaid activations, which is funny because you would think San Diego is much more mermaid. I am finding that this next season of my life is pure mermaid code activations. And I have felt like that has been unlocked. A lot of that has been getting unlocked for me in new ways over the last few months. And I've just been kind of swimming in that sea and getting to know myself in a different way, more from the space of like just observing and just witnessing and just being in this flow. Like I'm going downstream and I haven't quite landed where I'm going to land yet. And so I'm just noticing it. So anyway, I don't even really know what people wanted me to recap in Paris, but I didn't really think about this beforehand. So Paris, I went because my friends, Hannah and Dylan, were getting married. Some of you might know them. They met on Bachelor in Paradise. And yeah, so a bunch of us were all going to Paris for this wedding, which was kind of funny because it was like once everybody got in town, it just felt like we brought California to Paris. You have like 150 Americans in Paris and we all know each other. It was just funny. But I was going for that, and my friend Camille and I decided to go up a bit early so we'd have plenty of time to just like actually explore the city and do our thing and all that. And then the wedding was towards the end of the trip. It was like the last thing we did. And my friend Camille was also moving, and so she had kind of packed up her whole life and booked a one-way ticket to Paris and has been like traveling after that. So it was kind of like the last hurrah for her leaving the States for a bit. And yeah, that was kind of, why we went. And I've never been to Paris before. So I've definitely been feeling the itch to go different places. It's funny. I've never really, up until this point, I was never really like, I never had the itch to internationally travel, I'll say. Like, I know some people that's like really important to them and they have like this itch and this desire. And I honestly just never really had that. I've traveled a lot in the US, but I just never, I've been to like, I don't know, 5 or 6 countries, but that was just never really a focus for me. Like I never had that drive. And it's been coming up recently, I would say in the last 6 months, where I'm actually feeling called to go places. I just wasn't getting the call, and I really believe, especially with travel, but all things in life, it's like, I wait for the call. I don't try and force, because timing is a real thing. It really is. And right now is a time where kind of what I was saying in the last episode about like we're being pulled to different places for different reasons. And, for me, it's different activation codes I can receive in those places, different past life memories I can turn on in those places. Also work that I need to do on the land. Also people I'm there to meet. There's all kinds of reasons why I'm being guided there at this time. So I have definitely, I've gotten my next places that I'm meant to go. So I'm getting that bug. I'm excited. But, London, which was a couple months earlier, I don't know, when was that? I guess more than a couple months, like April. This year has gone by so fast. Really knocked a lot open within me. And I was very curious to see how I felt in Paris. And how we feel in different places is so unique, right? Because there are places that like are just not going to resonate with me, that are deeply going to resonate with someone else. And so it's never like, it's when people don't resonate with locations, it's not a judgment of the place itself, right? It's like, I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't want to live where I'm living right now. That's fine. That doesn't mean it's a bad place. It's just like, that's just not where they're meant to be. And there are a lot of locations people love living that I personally just would not want to, whether, I don't know, just I don't resonate with it, or I don't like the weather, or like whatever it is. It doesn't really matter, So these aren't like better than, worse than judgments. It's just like, it's all resonance, it's interesting. For me, Paris was hard for me. It was really hard for me, for a number of reasons. The first being there's just in many places on the planet, right? But there's just a lot of pain still. There's just a lot of pain held there. And you think about that just historically, and think about like just the art that's come from that place. Think about movies that have been filmed there and like just the history of it. And we were staying, we were staying in an area, we're staying in Bastille. So like, this is where, the revolution happened. And long story short, like as soon as we got there, I wasn't really like, I don't know, thinking about it, I guess. We got there, we're staying in an Airbnb, and I could not sleep. I did not really sleep much. The first couple nights especially were really rough. I had so many dead people coming into my room, having messages, needing help, needing healing, needing support crossing over. As I've said, mediumship isn't my favorite thing personally, but you gotta do what you gotta do. So I was spending a lot of time like working with those energies. There's a lot to clear. There was a lot of people who needed help. There's just a lot of like healing that needed to take place. And when we pass, especially traumatically, or when we have a lot of trauma, things that we haven't healed, and then we passed, that can show up in our next incarnation, right? Which is why sometimes we have certain fears, or we have certain, fears, wounds, whatever, and we don't really understand where it comes from, where it came from. There's no logical reason. Well, it might not be from this lifetime. It might be something that never got cleared, So a lot of people, if they died in a very traumatic way and they popped into the next incarnation, and like that was the last thing that happened, a lot of people have intense fears around that happening because they never like healed that or cleared that, So a lot of that. And then also a lot of sometimes, souls kind of, I don't even, sometimes it's really hard for me to talk about all of this, everything I do, because I know people get very attached to the words, and it's not, the semantics aren't necessarily accurate, but it's the best way to describe what's going on. And so whatever. It's kind of like the soul gets stuck, I'll say, like hasn't fully crossed, is lost, still has a message, still feels confused, still feels traumatized, isn't ready to go to the next phase. And so sometimes those souls need support. So it was just very intense feeling the energy of that land and things that have not been cleared and healed, and all of the souls. Like that's of all the places I have personally been, I've never experienced so many uncrossed souls in one area. And so it was very intense for me, to be honest. And it was kind of dark, and I definitely had trouble sleeping. I didn't sleep that much. And yeah, there's a lot of like psychic attacks that run around in that area. It was just, yeah, interesting, So that was going on. We I think we did really well with like hitting most of the major spots to see. Loved going to all the different major spots, tourist spots. I feel like some of my favorite things to see were all the different churches there for sure. So we went to a lot of different churches. They're absolutely beautiful. And the thing there was a lot of these churches just needed a lot of energy work. And so I was spending a lot of time clearing the energy. And so I want you to think about it like this. A church, and a church is a place where people come to pray, right? And a lot of people pray about things that are difficult, or they confess their quote sins, right? Coming from someone that I grew up Catholic, okay? So we confess our quote sins. We pray about struggles. We pray and ask for help when people are having a hard time. They go to church for healing. And the thing that a lot of these churches really needed was, it was like they needed to be drained out energetically. Like all of that energy, all of that, the low frequency energy was just kind of being held there and the church was just holding it. And like foundationally, quite literally, that can like very negatively affect the buildings themselves when they're holding all of that energy, but also for the space to actually be able to do all of its healing work, draining that vibrationally, it's like a full reset, right? And sometimes people go into churches and they get a weird feeling, or they get a creepy feeling, and that can be from all kinds of reasons, right? There can be shenanigans happening in the church itself, in the actual church, but a lot of churches, it's really just because all the energy has been held there and it hasn't been released or cleared or sent back to the earth. So I was doing a lot of energy work on these places. The churches were asking me to do this. And, it was really powerful to kind of reconnect with this energy of, I guess it could be church, it could be temple, like the energy of going somewhere to really connect with a specific being, and specifically, my favorite place was the Church of Mary Magdalene. I didn't get to go to South of France this time, but I definitely need to go. I spent a long time in there and was chatting with her, and it's just like really powerful. She was just kind of reminding me simple as, I'm like, what do you think about this? And she's like, simple as, like, if there are places where people are revering us, like a certain being, of course we're going to come through. Like, of course we're going to be grateful for that honor and respect. And of course our energy is going to be potent, and it kind of goes back to like having an altar in your space can be really beautiful to connect with these beings. Like if you are looking for deeper ways to connect with your guides, or even a specific being, setting up some type of altar for yourself can be really beautiful. It can just be like, any objects, maybe a photo of them, maybe an object that reminds you of them, maybe a crystal, like anything. It could be an essential oil, maybe, I don't know, a necklace or anything like that. I actually got myself a little trinket from the Church of Mary Magdalene because I had such beautiful conversations with her. And, Mary Magdalene's a whole other topic, right? But like she was talking to me a lot about just like the healing that needs to happen on this planet right now. And that places like churches, temples, places to go. And those can be virtual spaces. Those can be physical spaces. That can be any gathering of any sort. She was just saying that places of gathering or gatherings with a shared common intention are going to be so crucial at this time. For our higher healing and to really bring in higher frequencies and a lot of these beings that want to help and want to support. And, such a simple message, but I just like, she really drove it home for me. I was like, that is so crucial. I think it's one of the reasons why I love the membership so much, because it feels like this place where we all come together with a shared intention, and we are anchoring in, setting up so much light, right? It's like we are up, like a giant beam is getting sent to the sky. Like, hey, beings of the highest love and light, like, what do you want to say to us? And we get such powerful messages coming through, and so, you can really feel that connection to these beings. Or, the Church of Saint Germain, that was another beautiful one. He's funny, whatever. So I really enjoyed, going these places and connecting with the entities and channeling there, and just like having my own experience. And honestly, it kind of rewired a lot for me around church. I haven't really been to many churches since I quote left the church, if that makes sense. I feel like just the opportunity didn't really present itself. Now going to Europe a bit more, obviously, like, they're beautiful buildings to visit and it's cool to feel the energy. But yeah, it was cool for me to go back into a church and like have a very different experience and a much more profound spiritual experience. So yeah, I don't even know how deep I want to get into this. Is there anything else that Mary said that I should share here? Well, what I'll say is, take it or leave it, but, well, she has a strong connection to healing waters. And I think some people get the Marys confused. I'll just say that. She's saying not to go into it. Okay. But, Mary Magdalene is really coming through a lot for strength and for healing, for powerful healing. And so she's definitely someone to call upon if you're looking for healing. Saint Germain definitely was bringing up just like the fun piece and not being so serious, and people needing to like get reconnected to magic and really understand magic and understand like that as a science, right? That as a science, alchemy, sorcery, magic as a science, as it was in the old days, and like where that really comes from vibrationally, like connecting with that is connecting in with the fields. And when we are tapping back into our inner child, into our imagination and creativity, that is what supercharges our practice of working with energy. It is what, fuels our mind's eye so that we can create things in the non-physical that then can shift the physical, and so they were just sharing a lot about that. Those are probably my two favorite churches I visited personally. I was just doing a lot of grid work. I will talk about the Louvre, and it's funny because, I mentioned this on social media and people have been reaching out to me about it, but the Louvre was like so dark. I couldn't even. I got physically ill. Like I was physically ill. My guides were like trying to push me out. Sorry, I was just looking down because my cat, I put my foot on my cat, but I was really excited to go to the Louvre. I wanted to see all the things in there. I don't know. And I went in and my guides, it was like, don't be here. And I was just kind of being dumb and pushing past it. And I started to get really like nauseous. Like I was feeling so sick and like I was going to pass out. And about halfway through, I mean, it's huge, right? Like the Louvre is huge. I didn't realize how big it was. I knew it was big, but like, I don't know. I've been into a lot of big museums, and like this is big. Like there's no way you could finish it in a day. I feel like you need a couple, but it's also very confusing and the signs aren't very good. So we kept getting lost, and it was just like there's a lot going on. There's so many people. It's very overwhelming for somebody who's energetically sensitive. And, before that I had protected myself, and I also I kind of turned everything down so I could have my human experience, but I was getting so ill, and I did throw up. It was not good. I got so sick, and they were just like, get out of here. And I was like, what is going on? So I turned on my third eye, turned the dial up, and I was like, I'm not surprised. Like, I just got ill. Like, I need to get out of here real quick. There was just so many low frequency entities flying through. And like, I think like being there and seeing it in person just hit me so different. Like, it's like the difference between, you can watch something in a movie or on a TV screen or like on the news and see that or feel that, but like when you're there in person, it hits you so differently, like so much more intensely. It's so emotional, but in being there in the Louvre and like literally with my own eyes seeing, because I see holograms, or I see things like they're 3D. It's not just in my mind's eye, but like seeing all the holograms, seeing these beings flying around and seeing what was going on. And like, just honestly, I just felt like a place where low frequency entities are feeding off all of these people, off of their energy. The vibe was so low. Ugh. I don't even like talking about it. Ugh. And it's a shame because there is some really beautiful stuff in there. And also a lot of that stuff is stolen and fake, A lot of that stuff is not real. Wink, wink. And a lot of it is coded with vibrations meant to deactivate people's awareness and keep people asleep. And it was just really low vibe, honestly. So yeah, and it's funny because I've had a lot of people since that I've talked to, they're like, you know what, it's so funny, every time I go to Paris, it's like my guides will not let me go there. And I think that's why. So yeah, if you go, I would recommend protecting yourself. I would be energetically aware. There was one wing in particular where like the most stuff was happening. Well, I will say the Egypt section, I literally couldn't be in. And just honestly, that whole section with all of the the paintings over where the Mona Lisa supposedly is. No thanks. And I think while I was there, I mean, I was so depleted at that point, like I just could not. And maybe I don't think it was even in I couldn't even think about trying to clear any of that. It was not the day for battle. I will tell you that. But I had been doing a lot of stuff, clearing out a lot of the churches, and a lot of other places I was going in, different museums. There's just a lot of pain like stored very actively, very, very actively on the land. And it's a very different feeling than, when you go to a land and you can feel the pain from the past. It felt like it was beyond that. It was like, these are like active entities running around, like things have not left, whatever. Sorry if this is going in a direction you weren't expecting, but it is what it is. We also went to the palace at Versailles, which was, very cool to see. Ironically, it wasn't that bad. Like the energy was not bad. In fact, some of it was nice. And it has its stuff, and there's definitely a lot, with the revolution and whatever. So there was stuff, but I had a much easier time at the palace than I did at the Louvre. And I think it's just really incredible. It's just really incredible to be in a space like that, and like you think about when that was built and how large it is and how many people worked there and lived in that palace, like thousands and thousands, and no privacy. And I think like for me, it actually just really brought up, as silly as it might sound, like I think I've talked about this before, I love the show Bridgerton. And when I watch that show, not all of it's like factual, but just like the social dynamics and the way of living and the way things were. And it makes me very grateful to be alive here now. And you can really reconnect with the pain and the fear. And just how, brutal it was, especially in France, like from so many different directions, with the revolution and with all the health issues people had and like lack of resources and water, like there's a lot of pain, and there's been a lot of sickness. There's been a lot of violence, a lot of violence, a lot of loss. And it just feels like, many places have that. And I think some more than others, it still feels very active. And, it's funny, places like that can definitely be sources of inspiration for people, right? Because you're reconnecting with an intense emotion. And in places where there can be a lot of heavy darkness, there can also be a lot of bright, bright, bright light and love. And it's that romantic kind of energy that's like, it's tortured artist. It's like there's this darkness and also a space of inspiration and deep love. The frequency there is just very, very fascinating. But what else do I want to say about Paris? Food wise, well, what I'll say is everybody was saying that they were going to be French people were going to be really mean. They were really nice to us. So I thought everybody was really nice. I love how the culture, there's so many things I love about the culture. There are also things like I don't. I love that they walk everywhere. I love that it's such a walkable city. And it's very big and you can't walk everywhere. But I love that people are just so active. And I love the whole like energy of, I feel like the energy there is just minimum, minimum. Like we're just going to walk. Not, like they don't seem to like work out or there are no gyms or anything. They don't work out, but they just walk everywhere. And then they eat small portions and then it seems like they just eat everything they want, but small portions, it's like this very just like less is more, instead of America. Like we were talking a lot about food and exercise, like with my friends, and everybody in SoCal is like, not everybody, but it's like very much like a gym rat kind of energy. Like everybody goes to the gym and like there's a certain way we eat and you just don't find any of that, in Europe. And it's really refreshing, but obviously like I love all those pieces of the lifestyle. I also did not love that it's really hard to find protein in the morning. We were just like laughing. It's like, we just live off of coffee and croissants here. So I did eat gluten. And then I kind of limited it. I like tried to, but it honestly, and I will say this, like I feel like you can eat gluten-free pretty much anywhere. It is harder in France than other places. Other places I've been internationally have definitely been easier. I think because it's like so croissant heavy. But lunch and dinner, there's, veggies and meat, which is nice. They're super into beef tartare, which I love. So that was great. So I definitely liked a lot of things about the culture. People were really nice. Loved walking everywhere. It's beautiful. It is very beautiful. I didn't realize, okay, this is what I love. And I also hate it. So I've never been there before. I didn't really know anything about it. And I didn't know that in August, everybody's on summer vacation. So the downside for us was like we kept going places and they were closed, and people aren't using websites, like they don't care. So you either you call or you go, and then you find out, oh my God, it's closed for summer, like it's summer vacation. And someone had told me there's a historical reason for that. It was like they shut down. I think they shut down like I don't know if this is right. So this might be wrong, but something of like they used to shut down the factories at that time so people could have a break. And
that kind of shut down everything in the cities. And then as time went on, they just kept with that tradition, even though things were up and running still. But the thing is, I guess, I mean, a lot of places in Paris in August were closed. So if you're going for the first time, I don't think I would go in August. Also, the weather was not my favorite weather. It's just very, very hot and sweaty. And I was like, I need a lymphatic drainage massage stat. But I didn't get one. Anyway, so yeah, and I obviously didn't like that because we wanted to try all the places, but I love that because I'm like, how amazing is that they, like, that's just the thing in their society, and I think about, like, over here, we are expected to work with the same energy level, like, all year long. And I've talked about this a lot in the membership. Like, it's just not realistic. And it is fighting our bodies, and it makes us sick, and like, you think about the female body, and we go through cycles throughout the month, and it's very normal for everyone to go through cycles throughout the year. We have seasons for a reason. And like, the idea that we should all have the same amount of productivity all year long in the same area of our lives is just completely ridiculous to me. And I think people need a lot more of a break. And that lends itself to a whole other conversation about, like, company culture and 9-to-5s and all that, which I could go off about. But I did love that. And like, how cool is it that just, like, kind of generally throughout this whole area, that was like, yeah, that's what we do, and I just think they have such a better balance over there. It's not living to work. It's just working to live, and so there's definitely much more of a creative vibe. And your long dinners, I love that to a certain extent. And then there's a piece of me that's like, let's go on to the next thing. It's so funny. It's like, the waiters are so fast, and then they leave you, and they, like, don't come to give you the bill for like 3 hours. Like, they just, like, literally won't even come over. So that was funny. But yeah, the food was great. I loved the food for sure. I think that being in Paris, well, I know, definitely, I'm a little bit French, just a smidge. So, embodying my French self. But the other thing I love about the culture is I love how they dress. Like, I was talking to my friends about this. I personally kind of low-key hate California style, or I'll say SoCal style. I just hate it. Personal preference, I think it's so silly. I feel like we just dress like teenagers. It's just a personal thing. Most of my friends disagree with me. Great. I like to wear sundresses, and I like to, like, wear, matching sets, and I like to, like, dress up. I like to look nice. I like to look, like, put together. That's just, like, not the vibe in SoCal. It's, athleisure or a crop top and high-waisted jeans. It's like that, and sneakers. Like, that's the vibe. And, no one over there is wearing athletic wear. So I love, like, the fashion. I love how everybody looks so nice. And even just, like, I love just, like, looking at, watching people, and how, like, their sense of style and fashion. And I felt like people were just so much more expressive, like, seeing how people really did express themselves through style. And I feel like here, everybody just kind of, like, is a copycat of each other. There are things in style, and we all just, like, do the same thing. And over there, it did seem like so much more of a personal expression, and people were really doing different things. And you could tell a lot about somebody's personality through what they were wearing, and I think that's super cool. So I loved that. I think France did kick up a lot in me, just past life wise. Like, I've had a lot of, like, my lives in France and other incarnations have been, like, very painful, just, like, very painful, with family wounds in those lives, best way I can put it. And so it definitely being there, kicked up a lot of feelings. And that is one of the things that can happen when you go to different places. I had a lot of stuff turn on, and I had a lot of, like, astral work that I need to be doing turning on. And, like, the guys were telling me different parts of my mission, but I also just had a lot of emotions simmering deep within me that aren't even from this lifetime, things that weren't cleared and healed that came up, that needed to come up, so that I could actually start to release those and heal those. And so it did bring up a lot in me personally. And I think that's another one of the reasons why a lot of us are being guided to different places, for like what we can bring to that land, but also so that we can complete cycles, and we can see what it brings up within us to heal some of these energies from other lifetimes that we maybe have forgotten about. And so I had a lot of visions turning back on, and realized a lot of healing I needed to do related to those lifetimes. And that was really beautiful. And it felt like, completing a contract, like very much talking to the land. And the best way I can describe it is, okay, let's say you grow up and you don't have a great experience home. You're like, I cannot wait to get out of here. I can't wait to go to college or university or whatever. And you're so excited, and you go and you live your life, and you're like, love it, never going back, hate going home. And maybe you do go back sometimes, but you hate it. You resent it, not fun, so annoying, hate these people, hate this place, whatever. And then maybe you like go and you live your life, and you do a lot of healing work, and you do a lot of clearing work and activation. You become very different. And maybe it's been a decade, 2 decades later, and you return back to your home. Maybe you return back to the school that you went to. Maybe you return back to your childhood home, and you feel so differently about it. Like it's like this place of, I can actually appreciate now, or like, I've come to peace with you, and I don't have all this anger or resentment towards you anymore. Like, do you know what I'm talking about? I know I have had that in this incarnation, and going to Paris for me was very much like that from other incarnations. Like, I had to go here to finish a piece of the puzzle, and just get back to this place of like, okay, I can be here now, because I have avoided Paris a lot. I've avoided Paris a lot in many incarnations, because I didn't want to go back, because I had so much pain there. And it was just like a place that held memories that I didn't want to face. And so it was really beautiful to go back and really clear that. And that's the thing about where we're stepping into with ascension and multidimensionality is it's not just like, oh, I'm only dealing with what's happening in this lifetime. That's where we need to start. We have to start there, and we have to focus on that. But the things from other lifetimes are just as present and just as relevant. And the more you remember, like I remember my past lives with the same ease that I remember what happened when I was 3 years old, 4 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old. Like, it's a memory. And so all of that is relevant. All of that is running through my system, and so we're going to start to feel some of that turn on. The other thing that was interesting when I was in Paris is I have deep soul connections with quite a few people in my life who really need to go to Paris. And who like need codes from that place. And so what was happening, what was so cool was like, I went there and I was able to like vibrationally send those codes to those people. And pretty much all of those people during that time, there was some dream exchange with me and them. So, they would tell me, they're like, hey, I know you're in Paris, but I had this dream about you. And like, this is what was happening. And these were all people who I knew on a soul level needed to go to Paris for some activation codes, and I was basically sending it to them in the astral, which is really cool. And we're gonna, I feel, see a lot more of that, like as different people travel, and we can send, we can bring some of that energy with us, And so like every place I go, that I'm collecting certain things, certain knowledge, certain information, that becomes activated in my field. And then as I move through the world, those activations can kind of connect with someone else's energy field and activate them into whatever they need from that, So we are able to do that for each other, which is really cool. So anything else I really want to say about Paris? Well, we did all the travel stuff, and then we went to the wedding. The wedding was absolutely beautiful, absolutely incredible. Out of a movie, out of a fairy tale. Can't say enough great things. Every little detail. It was next level insane. So grateful to have been there. And yeah, the whole thing, it is, it's interesting, how much you can really feel the history and how, it's still very alive. And remembering, I think it goes back with the idea of moving, like what I was talking about with homes, and remembering that buildings hold energy. Buildings store memories. And the same way, like my house had been reminding me, hey, make sure you're doing energy work and taking care of energy clearing, activating, and all the things that you do for your physical vessel with your home. It's the same thing like with these public spaces too, and when you tune into the frequency of a building, it's not just as simple as like, oh, this is low vibe or high vibe. It's not that simple. Like all of the memories that have been stored there, all of the people that have been there, the intentions that have been set, like the different, like the pain that has been stored there. Like a lot of the buildings, especially in France, I feel like we're like holding the grid. Like they were holding it down. They were holding it down because like all of that energy, all of that sadness and pain and resentment and all that had to go somewhere. And these churches had become a lot of these like portal points for that. And they were just, it was like, someone put all the dirty water in this fish tank. And like at some point we need to drain that fish tank and fill it with new water. And we can completely change the energy of a building when we do clear it, when we do release it. And even just realizing, like you can feel that. Like when you go into a home, you can tell if there's been a lot of struggle or pain or fighting there versus if it's been very happy and positive and lots of good times. You could feel the vibe there. And that's not a judgment of like this is good or bad. It's just like there has been energy here and we can totally shift it when we release it. But the thing is that I think a lot of people are very out of touch because they don't see it physically, right? So it's different for me. It's more intense for me because I'm seeing it. The same way you can, I don't know, see the door over there or the painting over there. Like I also see all these holograms. And many people have that ability, but it's not turned on for everybody. And you can see everything that these buildings are holding. And also there's this sense of like violation of certain buildings, when you're coming to a space, like with anything, like, do I have permission to work with you? Like it's a relationship. And a lot of these buildings have been used for, one of the things that a number of them were bringing up were like for filming. And it was like, I didn't want that here. Like that just violated this space, and like something happens when like these are complicated. It's kind of like a very complicated family dynamic, when like these buildings are holding it down and holding space for so many people. And then, low frequency entities are like feeding off what's going on there. And then, movies are being made or, stories are being told about these places that aren't all true. And it's like, it's just a lot of distortion, and so when there's a lot of distortion in the field, sometimes you walk in and you start to feel these distortions, or you start to feel strange feelings that you don't usually feel, or you start to feel limiting beliefs coming up, or like things that are matching with the resonance of distortion. And I do feel like, I personally feel like a lot of history that's been shared is just total bullshit. And there's a reason why that has been believed by so many people, and so it's really crazy when you go places with such deep history and you're feeling into like truths of what happened and real people and beings and powerful energy that was there. This space was the place of very, very powerful healers and very, very powerful, just straight magic. It's interesting. There's definitely like, we kept noticing there's definitely like a strong, like witch vibe, like witch community, like people like straight dressed. There's definitely that over here. But there is very strong magic and very strong healing. And there was also people that use that like not for good intentions. And there was also like a lot of violence. For sure. And so I think like my perception of Paris just from that interaction, it was heavy. Like there was a lot of beauty and there was a lot of magic. And I was channeling a lot. I was picking up a lot. I was picking up so much that I couldn't even really process everything. And I was getting a lot of good tidbits from a lot of the beings that hang out there. And I was experiencing just magic on a different level, you know, because it's just so available there. It's just like it's just ripe for creation and magic. And again, these are places of inspiration. My friend and I did what I like to call a synchronicity day, where you let the universe guide you. So I like to do this when I'm in a new city, or if I just have like a blank day, anywhere where I have the space to do it. This is one of my favorite things to do, where I just let the universe take me sign by sign. And we spent the entire day just letting the universe take us sign by sign. And that was the first time she's done a synchronicity day. And it was so fun just like seeing her be in this like giddy schoolgirl kind of energy, like, oh my God, like she couldn't even believe, like, oh my God, there's a sign. And we were just guided sign by sign throughout the city. I had gotten the hit. I was like, oh, they want us to get some jewelry. They're going to send us jewelry. And lo and behold, we get sent to this jewelry shop, and we go to this jewelry shop, and this jewelry shop literally has a bracelet of like this golden butterfly. And I was like, oh my God, I need this, monarch being. And she had just been talking about like her spirit animal, an owl. And the man goes, the jeweler, he was like, oh, I'm going to give you this free gift. It's a necklace. And it was of an owl, you know? And then we, you know, kept walking, and it was like, we were getting messages in books and different stores, and it was pure magic. It was pure magic. And we actually ended up, I was like, they're going to guide us to wherever we need to eat for dinner. And you know, in Paris, you usually really need to make a reservation, or you need to or you need to be prepared to wait like an hour and a half. Like there's long waits. You need a reservation most places. And we ended up right in front of one of the restaurants that was like on our list. We were like literally right in front of it. It's where it brought us, and there's no wait, there's no line. We sit right down. I'm like, how much more perfect can this get? Right? The universe will guide you 100%. So that's one of my favorite things to do. Hot tip, synchronicity day. You know, and it's cool to see where the universe takes you. You can also set an intention if you want to get a message about a certain thing. I did set an intention that I wanted to get a message about a certain thing, and I got lots and lots of signs. And it's fun to just let yourself trust, you know, and see where you end up. And we got some really powerful messages through that, you know. So that, I think, kind of wraps up my Paris recap. That was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. Is there anything else that I should share? The guides are just saying, like, they're trying to use, you know, many people right now are moving and sharing experiences. They're trying to use different people as examples of like why it's so important to trust your intuition and to go wherever you're guided. And that for just a lot of people right now, we need to travel places and we need to touch, they're saying touch different cultures and locations and places where we have history, so that we can remember what's blocking us. And we also need to go these places to help with the healing, because the earth is crying. The earth is crying, and the earth needs support. And the earth and many like buildings, you know, think of Gaia, but also think of just buildings themselves, like have done so much for us, and it's like paying it back, you know, like Mother Earth has cared for me, kept my feet on the ground, given me food my whole life. And it's like, okay, the least I can do is clear some stuff. The least I can do is, you know, help some of these buildings out. A lot of natural disasters, I mean, this whole other topic, a lot of natural disasters happening are not natural, but that's for another day. Ones that are, remember that the land is holding that vibration. And so places where there have been a lot of pain and sadness and low frequencies are stored, that is basically like the brewing ground for a natural disaster to occur, whether that is a fire or a hurricane. And this isn't always like current. There's current stuff, but this is also stuff from like thousands and thousands and thousands of years that's just been stored on the land, and it's just sitting there. It's the same way of like, if I have intense anger from an event when I was a child and I never feel that, I never move that out of my body, I never clear that, then that can develop into a health issue when I get older, you know? And so we are seeing these health issues of Mother Gaia. And it's time we start working with her to release this stuff, to transmute this stuff. It can't just be like ignoring it or band-aiding it. We do have to like get in there a little bit, you know? And so if your frequency is needed somewhere, you will get the call, and you've got to trust it. And you also got to remember that you are that powerful. You are that powerful that just being in a place can help to heal it. And a lot of places are needing some different energy right now. A lot of places have been getting a lot of the same energy, right? Similar types of people floating through. And so it's almost like they're popping like very different frequencies into new places. Does that make sense? To shake up the energy and get it flowing again so it's not stuck. So trust where you're guided. Okay, so that's what I have to say about the Paris update. Hope this finds you well. All in all, it was a great trip. Very, very grateful for it. Yeah, you never know. You never know what you're going to have to do when you travel. But I do think it was definitely it was a very psychic trip, I'll tell you that. And it was work. But also a lot of fun. Also a lot of fun, and also a lot of great food. So that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I will chat with you again next time.